Hey, what's up, everybody? Today I wanted to do kind of a different video. I wanted to talk a little bit about utility in Smite. This is something that when I started playing, I didn't really understand what it meant. Um, I think it's definitely an important statistic to have in Smite and something to be aware of when you're making a composition. So I want to talk about a little bit if you don't know about utility, just to kind of give you an introduction to it. So to start off, I figured I'd talk about Janus, who is kind of one of the great examples of a high utility god. So if you look at what utility means, of course, the root of it is use. So having high utility as a god means your kit has a lot of use. It does a lot of different things. That's what it means. That's basically what it means, and I'm going to talk about why that's important. So if we look at Janus's abilities, it's just kind of as kind of an example. His abilities just do so many different things, and a good way to tell if a god has utility is to just go into their abilities and to look down at the bottom where it has all the blue terms. If you see a lot of things there on an ability, that usually means that the ability does a lot um, and is diverse. That's kind of the basic idea behind a utility god is that their kit is diverse. It can help in a lot of different situations, and it kind of takes care of the composition for you. So when you're in a match, of course, so many different things can happen. You're stealing objectives. You need to get across the map. You need to get out of tough situations. You need to buff your team. There's so many things that could happen in a match that you may not be able to prepare for. So if you pick a god that naturally has a kit, naturally has utility in their kit, you're kind of preparing yourself for anything that can happen. It's kind of a good safety net, as I like to look. That's kind of what I think utility really is. It's a good safety net for your team. And that's why Janus is considered one of the safest mids at the moment because he is very mobile. He can get out, but he can also help his team get out, and he does it in a few ways. So we'll go over his abilities and why he has such high utility. And the first ability is called Portal. This is probably the main reason why he's considered to have high utility. This ability can do like 6 or 7 different things. So you can use this ability to collapse the wave. If you put it on the ground, the minions will fall on it and it'll collapse the wave. That'll allow you to use your 2 to clear it a little bit easier. You can also use the portal um, to go through walls. This is a good way to help Janus escape or to also initiate. So that's really 2 uses right there. You can also use it to you can put the portal below yourself in order to kind of give you a little bit of immunity if you're getting attacked with a lot of damage. So it's a good kind of escape ability for just to delay some damage. You can also put it under an enemy god um, to have them be CC'd for a little bit, and it also does a little bit of damage. And you can also put in a wall and have an ally go through it. So if you're looking to help a teammate get out, you can do that. So it just, like I said, just 6 or 7 different things. Very useful ability. This is one of the reasons why a lot of people say if you're playing Janus, you want to build cooldown, because if you have an ability that can do a lot of different things, it just makes sense to use that ability more often. Um, and with Janus, he can just be like slippery and move in and out with his portal if he has it on like a 3 second cooldown. So his utility, cooldown is just very strong on him. So that's his first ability. His third ability is the other one I want to talk about, and that's Threshold. So this is probably one of the more underrated abilities in the game, um, because it just does so many different things again. So it's just a line on the ground that you can walk over, your allies can walk over, enemies can also walk over, and it will either buff or debuff them depending on who it is. So if you or allies walk over it, um, you will gain additional magical scaling. That will also add on to his passive, which is anytime he goes over a threshold or goes through a portal, he also gains magical scaling. So you can get a little bit more magical damage off of that. It'll also give you and any allies who walk over it movement speed, and then any enemies who walk over it, they will be slowed. So it's just again great for so many different situations. You can use it just on yourself, or let's say it's late game, you're trying to attack a phoenix. You want to rush in, get a little bit of movement speed, and also get your team buffed up. You can use that ability. So that's another really good one, good example of a high utility ability. And then of course his ultimate is just super useful, um, just to help your entire team. So this is really a damage and support ability all wrapped up into one. So it does a lot of damage. It's kind of a snipe shot. It's very small, but this will just help your team teleport across the entire map. So let's say you're in a tough situation by the enemy team's phoenixes, and you all need to back it once. Then once you're in the base, you can use your ultimates and then just get right back in there. And just it's a really good way to save time. Not only that, but you can actually the ability will go through the entire map, so you can in theory snipe an enemy god from across the map. It doesn't happen very often, but you can do that. But I believe you can only teleport through like half the map. That's how the range of the actual teleport. So that's the biggest example I think, or one of the best examples of a high utility god. And again, people consider him to be safe because he can just help in so many situations, and he's a great asset to your team. If you have a composition full of high utility gods, you can basically do whatever you want. You know, you anything that the other team throws at you, you'll be able to handle it somehow. There's going to be an ability out there that you have that can handle the situation. That's really why utility is such an important statistic, and why you should definitely consider it when you're picking gods. More often than not, a strong composition will have high utility. This is why you're seeing gods like Anubis, um, who else? Artemis. I mean, Scotty to an extent. Thanatos. You know, these are gods that don't really have much utility. Anubis is a perfect example for a very low utility god. Is just full damage. Doesn't really help the team. Is just out there to just one shot people, and that's it. He's a one trick pony. Janus is not. He can do so many different things, as well as doing damage. So it's like having an Anubis that doesn't do as much damage, but still just helps your team so much. That's really the point, is to help your team with utility. So with that, I wanted to end the video. I don't want to make it too long, but I will talk about, before I go, a couple other high utility gods, at least gods that I consider to be high utility. Um, by definition, gods that have stance changes are high utility. So Hel, Tyr, Ullr, these are gods that have basically 6 abilities, because when they change their stances, not only do they lose their cooldowns, but they have an entire new kit. So this just allows them to do so many other things. Hel's kit is probably one of the more bloated ones out there. Again, she can do so many different things, and then when she changes her stance, she can do she has no cooldown on the other abilities, so she can just do something else as well. So she's a great example of another high utility mage. Tyr is a very high utility soul laner, and Ullr is probably the highest utility hunter. Amu's and Cab is also kind of high utility as well. Another soul laner I want to talk about was Sun Wukong, mainly because of his 3. His 3 allows him to, if he's in tiger form, he can stun. If he's in ox form, he can do a knockup. And if he's in bird form, he can escape. So that just, again, allows him to have an ability that will help him in lots of different situations. And then finally, as far as guardians, I think Sylvanus is probably the highest utility guardian out there. So he has 2 roots. He has his passive is a root. His 1 is a root. His 1 also gives MP5, and it also does damage as well. He also has a heal with his 2, which also does damage. His 3 is a pull. It's a good aggressive ability, and then his 4 is a knockup. So he just has so many things that he can do as a guardian. And there are other high utility guardians out there. I mean, guardians in general are supporty, so they want to have different things that they can do to help their team out. But I think Sylvanus definitely has the most abilities kind of wrapped into his kit. And then as far as junglers go, junglers aren't usually that high utility, but I think Nemesis is a good example of a high utility jungler, because she has a shield that can do a bunch of different things, and her ultimate also. So she's probably one of the more high utility assassins out there. So with that, I'll end the video. If you have any questions about utility, of course I don't know everything about utility, but definitely feel free to comment and just ask some questions. I know it's something, again, that I didn't know too much about going into Smite, so I figured it'd be important to kind of share it just to give a little bit of insight. So I thank you very much for watching, and I hope you have a great day.